Once I got to the start line and I saw what I saw, I knew what my game plan was. Hey, second community, this is Steve Grusis the Cycling Greek.
Pretty good southerly wind.
Yeah. So we have one team of 3 and 2 teams of 2.
Yeah.
And a couple indies.
And those 2 independent riders, or rather solo riders, are Cleve, the guy I was talking to, and me. My plan was as follows. I would let the other teams do the work. I would only go into the wind only if it was opportune. My winning move would be on the feed zone climb second lap, which is about a half a mile before the finish. Once I hit that feed zone climb for the first time, I modified it such that I would attack on that low-grade riser that follows the climb. As we're going up the first small climb, let's talk some numbers. This is a 46-mile race. The elevation gain is about 1,600 plus feet. Because of all the flat sections, people think of this mostly as a flat course, but there's enough climbing at the right places that can cause you to drop off from any pack that you're with. We are a group of 9. Not a lot of people to hide behind. Now, in terms of the major teams, Penn Velo has 3. They're in the orange and yellow. That's Eric in front of me. In front of him is Tim Davis, one of the 2 Courier Monterey Racing Team riders. And the third team with multiple riders is San Jose Bicycle Club. I had a chance to talk with each of the teams after the race, so I could ask them questions about their tactics and actions that they took and compare it to what I thought was going on during the race. What I saw, what you're seeing now, surprised me quite a bit. Tim Davis at the front doing domestique type of work. In fact, he did that a lot during this race, so I figured that he was working for his teammate Tom. They're both strong sprinters. Tom, being a bigger guy, is a little more challenged on the climbs. As it turns out, Tim was recently off the bike for about 10 days due to back issues. Part of his MO for the day was he wanted to get some work in. Later he mentioned that he wanted to have Tom lead him out in the last 200 meters. Regarding the 2-man San Jose Bicycle Club racing team, I'm only partially familiar with their riders. I'm not sure how they would stack up against the sprinters on the other 2 teams. They seem more like a team that would need a breakaway in order to win. Lastly is the 3-man team of Penn Velo. That team fascinates me the most. Each of the riders has their roles, and they did a good job sticking to it. Most of the time when a situation presented itself, they chose and executed the right tactics. But there were times when they did stuff where it just totally dropped me. Jumping ahead just a bit, this is where the real action of this race starts. We were just passed by a couple of Pro 1-2s. Monterey's Tim Davis puts in a little dig to see what's what. Steve Clifton, the closer on the Penn Velo team, covers that move. Well, Eric in front of me is not going to pull us up, and I'm not sure what San Jose Bicycle Club's going to do, so I just jump after them. Now, Steve's not going to let anything with Tim in it get away. Conversely, Tim's not going to let anything with Steve in it get away either. In the beginning of the race, like I usually do, I kept myself toward the top 3. That's a great tactic, especially if you have a teammate, but I don't have any teammates, and so I could get surprised by something coming from the back. So I decided to slip back a little bit so I can have a better view of the playing field. If you turn your attention toward the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see our course. We're doing it in clockwise direction. We're currently on the west side of the oval. This side is littered with small climbs and risers. The east side, at the top, has a small climb. And there is the feed zone climb, which is toward the bottom. The road surface on the west side is pretty good. On the well-traveled east side, 2.5 decades ago, was smooth as glass, and with a little bit of tailwind, you just flew. Now, there's ruts, and it gets so bumpy in some sections that I either have to stand and use my legs as a shock absorber, or do the best I can to find the best line and just grin and bear it. Each of the teams were quite prudent and looked for opportunities to attack. Not necessarily to make it to the finish before everyone else does, although they would certainly take that, but to make the other teams work. When Penn Velo's Eric took off, and he's a great breakaway rider and has a lot of hang time if he's out there solo, and then San Jose's Mike Vela took off after him, I thought this is a great combination to go with. Now this is a little early in the race, but there's 2 things that I noticed. As soon as I got up to the break, things slowed down. Not having any teammates, I was not going to punch it, but neither of these other 2 did. Again, probably early in the race, and they thought better of it. Second thing I noticed, only because I'm putting this video together now and I didn't look behind me when I jumped up to those 2, is that we had a gap. and it was filled by a Penn Velo member. So why is a Penn Velo member pulling that group up to us? It may have been that we were just going too slow. They just went back up to us, and it wasn't much of an effort at all. However, Monterey is a very strong team, so perhaps you just don't want to pull the group up to us. Perhaps the best option is to have the gap grow as much as Monterey would allow, then have Monterey spend the energy to pull the pack up. One of the more significant events of the race happened here, later in the first lap on the east side of the oval, after the small climb, before the roads got really choppy. If you look at the rear cam video in the upper right hand corner, behind Monterey's Tom McCullough is San Jose's Eric Gray. He attacks from his rear position, building up speed as he's going through the pack, and then he's off solo. At this point, I would expect Penn Velo or Monterey to react, and neither of these teams did. As I look at the playing field, I see Tim Davis at the front. Now, he's been there for quite a bit, therefore expecting him to cover that move probably wouldn't have been reasonable. Now, you had a Penn Velo behind him, and I think that is Eric. He, like the rest of us, has been getting a ride. This would have been an opportune moment to put Monterey on their back foot. Because, as previously stated, Eric's a great breakaway rider, but a little later in the race, I remembered Eric from the Snelling Road Race earlier this year, where he almost won it on a long-distance solo breakaway. So, opportunities not taken. Probably the general thought of the pack is, hey, it's 30 miles to go. This guy's not going to last. Eric's got some staying power. We've been consistently going about 24-25, and you can see the gap that he has on us. I also want you to make note of the little yellow dot in the upper left-hand corner that marks our location on the course. We'll refer to that again in a little bit. Now, basically, we have three people chasing one. Monterey's Tim Davis, and Penn Velo's Eric Salander, and Shin Umeda. Make note that if Steve Clifton was not racing today, then Penn Velo's Shin Umeda would be their sprinter guy. I've now jumped to the start of this climb that's at the bottom of the course just after the start of the second lap. Up to this point in the chase, we had previously increased our speed significantly at certain parts to cut down the distance between us and Eric. And then we'd slow up a bit, and then he'd get the distance again. So now he still has a pretty good distance. He's about 3/4 of the way up this climb when we started the climb. Even though, relative to my category, I'm a pretty good climber, I get nervous on climbs and work my way up toward the front so I can sag back if I need to. Jumping ahead a little bit again, sometimes you use tactics that I'm doing. You find yourself at the front and it's unavoidable that you got to go to the front. So this is one of those situations. I decided to put in a little dig and also to maybe cut down some distance to Eric up there, because I can see him up there. But obviously we haven't caught him yet. I get some distance from the others, and then they start to chase. Then when I see that they're on my wheel, I then shut it down and wait for the next person to come by so I can get on somebody's wheel where I should be. Finally, and I was getting nervous, and I'm sure others were too, up ahead is Eric, and we're about to catch him. So you look at that little yellow dot in the upper right-hand corner, it's been about half a lap. This was a huge effort by Eric. What this effectively does, at least for the moment, it cuts down the number of teams from 3 down to 2. What San Jose's Mike Vela has to do now is have the mindset of a solo rider, at least until Eric comes up to him and says that he's functional again. And this may be part of the plan. The plan for San Jose may have been that Eric will try to get in the breakaway, otherwise it's going to be Mike for the finish. While I didn't think about this until later on in the race, Penn Velo's Eric Salander did. I was keeping my eye on the clock, hoping that we could do each lap in 1 hour, but we were doing it a little bit longer. I have a little over 2 hours worth of battery on my GoPro, so I had to shut it off, and so that's why you're seeing the rear camera now. I figured there wasn't going to be a lot of action on this section. I was wrong. We had a couple of small attacks and chases, and then Eric went to work. Eric caught everybody at the right time, put in an attack that no one responded to, and immediately he had about 4 seconds. So this was the situation I was talking about. San Jose's out of the picture as a team, therefore the responsibility is solely on Monterey. At the very least, it would cost him energy to bring him back, and that's what Penn Velo wants. What happened was Penn Velo's Steve Clifton went to the front and brought the pack back up to Eric. I didn't understand that one, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's the money shot.
And this is where I should have turned the GoPro on sooner. So what had happened was that I think it was Eric, he attacked again and got a good gap. Monterey's Tom McCullough, who's been sitting at the back the entire race, jumps after him and it looks like he's going to catch him. I then started to go through the calculations that I talked about earlier, and then figured, okay, it's now my responsibility. So that's why I jumped. Tim Davis got on my wheel, and there was a little bit of a gap to the others, but everyone's chasing to get on me to hopefully get on those guys there. I get close to them, but I can't seal the deal. I've got to back off a little bit. The others come by and eventually make it across. Now I am in no man's land. All I'm thinking about is getting up to those guys. While they seem to be doing their usual, now that we got together we'll slow down a lot, I don't trust that. I want to get up to them as quick as I can. Then I'll feel a lot safer. I do, and I do. The current view of the chessboard is that it's Monterey's full team, Penbello's full team, and me. And it looks like we have a rider coming up and everybody else is just split out the back. And I'm going to guess that's going to be Eric from San Jose. My biggest effort during that chase was 449 watt average for 50 seconds. Hey, keep in mind, I'm 70. Jumping ahead a bit, we've made that final turn at the top and we're heading back in. I'm a little nervous being so far up, but we're heading into that climb and I want to be toward the front in case again I need to sag back. My head's on a swivel looking for a possible attack. And here it comes. Monterey's Tom McCullough. Penbello's Shin Umeda and I are side by side jumping after him. Then I'm figuring, hey, I'll just go on Shin's wheel, which I do. Fortunately, I haven't got hypoxic yet, so I'm thinking, why is he doing this? Oh, I know. His teammate Tim is going to counter on the climb. So now I have two things going on in my head. One, I got to stick on his wheel. And two, when the attack comes, I've got to jump on it. As it turns out, the attack never came. We are now down to the finish. We passed the town of San Ardo and on our way to the feed zone hill where I'm going to be making my move, or at least just after that. Penbello's money man for the race, Steve Clifton, is on his teammate Eric's wheel who's at the front. Monterey's leadout man, Tom McCullough, who's having trouble with cramping now, is on their wheel with his sprinter, Tim Davis, on his. I am not in good position. I need to be on Tim's wheel. I am being blocked by San Jose's Aaron Gray, who wants Shin's wheel and I don't want him to have it. My bad positioning has negated my plan. I now have to use a boatload of watts further back in the pack in order to stay connected with the pack, much less be able to do any type of move that I wanted to do. On top of that, Eric has now reached his limit and I've lost my wheel. So now I'm using more energy to get up to these guys again. Monterey's Tom McCullough has now reached his limit. I'm still doing over 500 watts and trying to survive. I don't know what's going on behind me. I'm just trying to get connected to a wheel. And I finally get connected. So now we have Steve Clifton at the front who started his sprint. You have Tim Davis on his wheel, you have Eric on Tim's wheel, and I just lost Shin's wheel. And we finished in that order. A well-earned 5th-place podium spot. That last effort was about a minute and a half at about 380 watt average. And the first 30 seconds was about 480 watts. Again, I'm 70. I hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. As always, remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.